Peggy 18.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to EGL 15. This is a CWL Challenge event presented by PlayStation. Been a long time coming, but I am Bryce, and joining me for the first game this morning is Chris Tan.
Thank you very much, Brycey. And once again, here together, I feel like we've casted a lot together.
It is.
Not much recently.
No.
It's been lovely, if I'm honest.
It's a duo through the ages, that's what this is.
Through the ages, yes.
Through the ages.
I agree. I can't really hear you very well on my microphone right now, but
It's
okay.
fine.
We'll deal with it, because we're professionals.
We'll continue, because we're professionals. That's what
Yes.
we are.
Yes.
But yes, good morning and welcome. We are getting this all underway. A few games already taken place off stream. Some of the big boys in the CWL going to town on some of the lower teams. We saw some of those games. Actually, we had a little watch here, I think.
Yeah.
2 records were set this morning. Empty set it first, 250 to 37. And then Infused beat it, 250 to 30.
And then Infused had something to say about it, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually sat and watched some of that game. I know you came over late on it, but Trey, Zero, just literally pulling faces. But I mean, it's what to be expected, you know, the pro teams from the pro division.
Well, they've been waiting for this. They've been waiting to kind of prove just how good they are now. And we see these guys every week kind of go in and out of the CWL, and they face other top teams.
Yeah.
Now, when you're facing top teams, it's hard to show as good as you are, because the games are fairly close and the skill is there. And now they get a chance to go, well, watch us cut loose. Watch how much practice and how good we actually are.
It's one of those things where the pro teams are always playing against each other. That is the best practice you can have, is playing against good teams. So obviously playing in an environment where it's competitive, they're playing in the league, is a big thing for them. So both teams going at each other very, very well. But then they go up against teams who are trying to get, who are challenger teams.
Yeah.
And it's really the disparity is there.
This is the other more important thing about this weekend. Is that a lot of these teams want to get into the CWL.
Yeah.
And speaking of this, before we go any further, let's actually have a quick look at the tournament format for this weekend to see how it's all going to go down. As you can see, day 1, group stage is taking place today. There are 8 groups of 4, of which the top 2 from each group go through to the playoff stage. These are best of 3s all day. It will go hardpoint, uplink, search, and destroy. Day 2, though, we're going to see the playoff stage. All those groups coming through. It'll be 16-team single elimination bracket, determine the EGL Open champion, and it will be a best of 5. So everything to play for. Get through day 1 and go into day 2.
Man, I'm excited.
It is. But this is what they're also playing for here. You can see $25,000 prize pool in first, $10,000 second, $5,000 third, $2,500 fourth. Again, is the same. This is single elimination, so they will not differentiate. And then 5th to 8th, again, is $1,250. And for a lot of these teams here, that's a significant chunk of change. But not only that, not only are they playing for this money, and the money is important, but for a lot of these teams, what's more important is the CWL points distribution.
Massive.
Now,
Massive.
The reason this is so important, and Tony, you'll back me up on this.
I will.
Is the fact that this can determine who gets into relegation for the next season, for Season 2 of the CWL presented by PlayStation.
Yeah.
Now, some of these teams already have got some points accumulated here. This is what seeding of this event has actually been done on. They have done it in the
Tempo at the top.
I think so. I think Team Tempo are at the top. But like I said, points here, there are so many points on offer for these teams that it can make or break their career. I've already spoken to a few teams here this morning, and they've been saying, you know what, we hope if we can get at least second, then we should be able to jump up into that relegation zone. And that's what they're all aiming for. They want to be in that position where they have the opportunity, and it is just the opportunity, to qualify for Season 2. That's what matters so much here this weekend.
Yeah, I think that is probably overrides the prize pool, if anything. I mean,
for a lot of these players it will, because it's kind of the crowning glory of it.
Yeah, because you want to get into that league with the big boys. That is why you are here this weekend. Yeah. If you're a challenger team, anyway. If you're
and not only that, but a lot of the pro teams are standing in their way.
Oh, yeah, a big style, because obviously the groups all have one pro team in them. So everyone sort of has to play against them. I think this first game that we got coming up on stream is going to be a real interesting one. It's going to be the real teller.
We'll get to that, though. Don't ruin it yet. We'll get to that. We've got a whole load of kind of breakdown for that one as well. So there is a lot to go. What I want to do first, though, is take a little look at the groups. Because there are 8 of them. There are 4 teams in each. There is 1 CWL team in each group, of course. Just going through, obviously, you can see Group A to H is what we're going to be using this weekend.
H?
And I'm not going to run down all 32 teams, but you can see them there a ton. Anyone that kind of sticks out for you?
I think Group F for France.
Yeah.
is a big teller for me. Vitality, Supremacy, and Hyper Games obviously all in there.
Group F for France,
really
that's pretty much what it is.
I don't know. I mean, if it could have fallen into any group, it was always going to be F. But, you know,
I mean, the other one for me, maybe Group G, TCM versus Rampage Tempo. I mean, Warfare are also pretty handy from what I've heard.
Yeah.
A lot of these, you're going to be looking at maybe the CWL teams to go through. I don't think anyone would disagree that these CWL teams have this pretty much guaranteed placement.
So. Group H is an interesting one for me as well.
Say again?
Group H.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's actually kind of been quite interesting. Because Team Spud are in that. And if you remember correctly, Team Spud is full of people like Pasco, McGee. And if you are a veteran, you will recognize those names because they are very, very talented.
If they can sort of show up to, if they can replicate the sort of form that they had done previously in previous titles, they should do well in that group, definitely. LDLC are a very, very good team. But they started off really well in the CWL, as we know, and they sort of tailed off a little bit. So let's see if they can maybe refine that form.
And that's something that we're going to be looking for on LAN here. Now, I actually did a prediction series with one of the players from Epsilon Reedy.
Okay.
And we covered a lot of these teams. And funny enough, the way the CWL has actually played out is a lot of what we said would happen. I do believe the French teams do struggle online in pro leagues, and they have done in the past. Yeah. I think this weekend is where we'll actually see them be a lot stronger. I expect very dominant performance from some of them. I've already seen Vitality win their first hard point in the day earlier on. Yeah. And so I think it's going to be a very, very close one. I actually think that was against Limitless I saw them play against.
I mean, I want to touch on the fact that obviously this is probably the first real big test for everyone here.
Yeah.
In terms of the game, okay, we had a couple of events.
Well, the meta's now more established. You've got a very established meta in terms of specialist draft, in terms of ban and protect, in terms of the actual guns that are being used. Yeah. The meta's firmly established. The lands we actually saw earlier on in the year were very new. A lot of teams still weren't completely au fait with actually playing some of these.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is crunch time now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where all these teams are starting to come together now. They're all well practiced. There's no excuses. Yeah. Everyone's going to come in here, firing all guns blazing. That's why I'm so excited for this weekend, because you look at the teams that are here. You look at the top team in every single one of those groups, and they are all pro teams. They would be expected to probably, realistically, everyone's looking at those top 8 teams in the top spot in each group. They should go top 8.
I also want to quickly point out is that Vitality and TCM are actually facing off. Well, they're not facing each other, but technically it's a little bit of a face-off coming up in the CWL next week.
Yes.
So there'll be an eye kept on them. So there's a few stories actually going to come through here. Millennium, of course, want to play Vitality as well, so they're hoping to actually draw them in the bracket because they're not going to get an opportunity to face them today. There's a few ones. I said a lot of scores to settle. Infuse, Millennium, Epsilon, Splice, and XL are all looking to play each other.
Yeah. That's another story everyone's going to be talking about is XL.
Because their first game was not as confident as we would have thought from a CWL team.
No. And a lot of people have talked about how well they play online. Although saying that, they had a really good start. It's sort of the same as LDLC. A really good start, started playing really well, winning some games that people wouldn't have expected, and then they've sort of dropped off a little bit. So everyone's interested to see if they can carry that online form that we have seen potentially from them into a LAN event.
Yeah. Well, their first game this morning, their first best of 3, they actually lost the uplink.
Oh, right.
Went to a game
I didn't
3.
catch the game myself.
Yeah. So from what I heard, I caught very briefly, I caught the hard point, and it was fairly close. From what I understand, they actually lost the uplink this morning.
Yeah.
So they're actually gone to the third map. I don't know the result of that third map, but it would be kind of exciting to see what actually happened as it actually went through.
Another thing I really want to touch on is that Exertus team.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Watson this morning.
Yeah, because he's here this morning.
And he has a lot.
The return of the Warlock.
You can tell how much he wants this weekend to go well for him. Because
he's realistically out of the players that weren't in the CWL, there were 3 originally.
Yeah.
Those 3 players were Shane, Sonny, and Watson. Obviously got kind of kicked out. There's actually, I'm lying. There is one more player. He's Dominate as well. But we're talking about these players that realistically we expect to see in the CWL. Now, Dominate hasn't managed to find his way back in. Watson's had to kind of come through and find an amateur team again.
Yeah.
Sonny and Shane actually managed to get into TCM in the end through transfers.
Yes.
But these are well-storied, well-known players. And Watson, I said, Watson's the only one currently outside the CWL who's competing here this weekend, who I consider a top-flight player, 100%.
You can argue he was one of the
He was the breakout
one
player
of the best
last
players
year.
in Europe last year.
Yeah, he was one of the breakout players last year.
Probably the most exciting player to watch last year from Europe. I mean, he was phenomenal. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can maybe carry on that form, because he has the potential to be one of the best players in Europe. It's always been a question of attitude. I was speaking to him before, and he is really, really saying to himself that he's changed his attitude. He wants to go out there and prove himself this weekend. And he can do no better than going up against XL. And if they beat XL, I'm going to say that Watson's going to carry on if he can get some momentum throughout this event.
Watson's a head player, and Watson loves to beat players who think they're better than him.
He was calling XL out when I was out. He was out. They're absolutely
that's Watson all over. But let's actually move on to the game we're going to see first on stream. So the first game on stream is going to be TCM versus Rampage Tempo, and this is a very important game for several reasons. One, Tempo are one of the hot favourites for Season 2, so they're desperately going to be looking to make a mark this weekend. TCM struggling right now in that relegation zone. They are looking for the 6th spot to go into the kind of guaranteed Season 2 as well, and that's all going to come in the next week. So this is actually a great benchmark here because there's been a lot of talk about Team Tempo. Some of it justified, some of it a little bit, crazy. I will admit that there has been a bit of a hype around this team here. But this is where we find out whether or not they actually have the mettle to mix it up with the big boys here at this event.
That's one of the things, because none of them have LAN experience.
No.
So that is such a big thing to have. They're in an environment they're not used to. They're not sitting at home yet. They're not sitting on their beds with their screens playing. They are sitting in a LAN venue against people who have played here a lot.
Well, they're playing against Shane, the veteran.
Oh, yeah.
One of the main veterans
since I played, which is like we're talking 4 years ago now. So he knows his stuff. He knows how to play at LAN. He can deal with pressure. He's going up against a team who have never had someone get into their heads in a game. Some people say it's all about composure, etc. But you have to know to just completely ignore. Well, at the same time, it's
interesting because we've seen players online be good at events. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that Team Tempo right now could come screaming out of the gate and be a great team. Not discounting that at all. But when it comes to LAN, it is the great equalizer. It is, realistically, this is the first benchmark where you can sit and watch them play against TCM and go, right, are Tempo the real deal? Are they the real deal? Are they actually going to be that hot favourite for Season 2? Because they're going to have to qualify.
Yeah.
And they need a good weekend here.
They really, really do. Mostly for the points, but to prove how well they can do. Because everyone's seen them online. They put Splice to the sword. Yeah. And Splice are a good team, but they're also a good online team as well. Yeah. So going up against them, and then Tempo showing the fact that they did well against Splice, beating them, I think it was last week, really showed how well they did online, but then they need to translate that to an event, and there's the TCM Gaming team on your screen. Shane, Sunny B, Bran, and Niall coming up for them. And obviously Shane's the guy we talk about. Sunny B, though, since he's come in,
he was in my Play to Watch video for a very good reason. Zero, I'm not going to lie to you, Zero was the first reason I made that video. Sunny B was the second name on my list. And then I named a lot of players with stories behind them coming into this year. Yeah. And Sunny B, I was distraught when he wasn't in the CWL. And I knew as soon as he entered into that TCM squad, you've got to remember TCM's had a really bad start to the season as well.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Absolutely terrible. They looked like just absolute trash. They did. They looked terrible. I'm not going to give it to them, but they've had a resurgence.
It's like
they've come back in a great fashion, and one of those reasons is Sunny B and how good he actually is. And I've said this, Sunny B to me is the great underachiever. This guy should have been performing at a higher level for a long time. He's been playing with top players for a long, long time, but he's never had the opportunity to actually kind of put the hammer down. And he's finally starting to break in.
Yeah, and as soon as he came in that TCM team, we've seen wins coming under their belt. Obviously, they're in a precarious situation still at the moment. But you have to say, if he was in the beginning of the season, do you think they would have been safe at this point?
I think they may. I think they would have been a little bit more comfortable. Now, because of how tight it actually is, I spoke to Shane earlier on, and Shane said, he goes, if we make it into the guaranteed Season 2, he goes, it will be by one map. That's firmly what we believe. We believe it's going to come down to map difference. Yeah. They've worked out, I think they've got Infuse and Excel to play next week.
Hard games.
Now, they've already kind of go, we don't think we're going to take the Infuse. We've taken Infuse to last map. Well, we don't think we can beat them. We're going to be realistic about this because of how good Infused are. He goes, however, we have beaten Excel before. Yes. He goes, we beat Excel last time. He goes, so we need to do the double here. If we do this, we should be good on map difference.
Well, we'll see. I mean, obviously that's going to be happening next weekend. But for me, if they come in with a good performance this weekend, that will translate into their online play as well. Hopefully they'll be able to carry some momentum through with that one. But TCM are a team definitely look out for. So coming up, I mean, I know we're going to go into it. We'll go delve more into it a little bit more in a second when the game does actually start coming to fruition. TCM against Team Tempo, I want to ask you for a quick prediction. Best out of 3 series as well.
It's a very, this is the reason this prediction's so hard, right? As I've seen them online, but I know,
that's
for
the
instance,
thing, Tempo, it's
it's an unknown entity. I've seen them, players like Typical Nerd have been amazing. However, I know that people like Shane struggle online. So it's a very difficult benchmark. If this was actually in online, I'd probably be leaning towards tempo more because of how well they've been playing. But now I know that we're at an event. They're literally going to be sitting on main stage. I am leaning back towards TCM. You remember these players are going to be a little bit, and it's not all the entire squad. I'm just kind of banking on Shane and Sunny being. I think Sunny's going to have an incredible game. I think Shane's going to be a lot better than he is online.
Yeah, I think though, at the same time, TCM, half of that squad does have a lot of LAN experience.